I guess I'll be live now on YouTube. So cool. Thanks. Hi, Martin. Yeah, cool. Uh, yeah, I guess you have heard about us before, so that's good. So yes, we are ready, and I can hear my oops is making noises. So cool. Yes, let's get started. We're at the top of the hour. Probably a few more will be joining shortly. So thanks for joining. We will be talking about how to automate your migration from SAP PIPO to Integration Suite or CPI. And obviously, we would probably be using, CPI, Cloud Integration, and Integration Suite as two interchangeable words, so don't be afraid. It is the same thing as I see it, that we want to move into. So I guess we'll start up with a little on the agenda. We'll talk about SAP and migration, why you should prepare, what you should prepare in advance, how Figaf can automate it, and then how to get started. And yeah, questions along the way, please share. Just put them into the chat, and I'll try to cover those. So who else? Figaf. We are a company that's focused on creating tools to automate SAP integration. We started out creating a tool to automate testing on PIPO. Then we found out that to do that, we needed to know everything about what was going on in the PI system, and then we might as well do a governance tool for it. And then we figured out if we could do the governance, we can improve the governance by creating a transport tool. Then I think that was just about when CPI was, the name was changed to CPI. We added support for CPI, and then finally last year we added PI to CPI migration support. And we got a new one upcoming shortly, which is integration or migration from Neo to Integration Suite to also help in that process. Cool. So let's start up with TechEd. And I think this is probably the reason you could be here. SAP has obviously been talking a lot about that. You want customers to migrate, that the process orchestration is not really the way forward, and has a limit until 2730. And you need to figure out what is your migration strategy. SAP has these three pillars: migration factory that helps you estimate what is going on and how to deal with the migration. They have created an assessment and a migration tool that is in beta right now. And then they have talked with partners to create a free regression test tool. And those partners we are one of those partners. And I guess the key thing they want to address with this is the testing is a substantial part of a migration. And according to Gartner, it's 60 to 65%. And I guess that should be taken with a grain of salt, that you don't really know, well, depending on scenarios, etc., what are your use cases. But we are one of these tools that creates the testing, and I'll show a little later what are the differences between the different versions we have and what we can do in that perspective. But this slide is taken from the Modernized Integration Suite slide. So SAP, yeah, effort. I guess if you're a SAP customer, and I guess maybe this is time for. Oh, let's see here. Paul, present the polls. Yeah, let's just wait with that one. So SAP's effort is, well, it's about talking about you should be migrating. And if you've been talking with your account representative, they've probably asked you if you're up to migrate. They have released this assessment tool to give you an understanding of what is going on with your landscape, how easily it can be migrated. And then they have working on a template-based approach to migrating icos to iFlows. There was a little of it in this slide, but I think, or in this presentation, but I think they will probably be sharing a little more about what this tool can do. The published limitation is that it's only supporting 7.5. So if you have something that is not 7.5, none of these two, the assessment or the migration tool, will help you there. And then they're working with partners like Figaf to automate the testing for free. And I think another thing that is holding customers back, and I don't know if you have anything else that is holding you back, but I think the integration cell, they are, I think they're close to starting a beta where you can deploy it in your Azure and other hyperscalers Kubernetes cluster. And then at some point in time, there will also be a version you can deploy in your own Kubernetes cluster. But I think that is one of the main aspects that you need to look into. We have done this partnership with SAP to create a tool or a version of our tool to give you free access to handle the part of the migration. So this is the assessment and a project overview, and we'll go into details about demos of these things. But when I do the demo, I just want to show it as like a full concept about what a migration would look like, because then it makes more sense for that. We will also be talking about testing, taking messages from your PI scenario and run them in the migrated iFlows. And the tool also contains a trial edition of our DevOps tool and our migration tool. And you'll see all of this in action in today's demo. Cool, I need to select the right. So why migrate? I guess with the talk at TechEd, obviously it becomes clear it is the modern platform. It's easier. It should have a lower cost of ownership, according to SAP. So it is, I think, the place you want to do or work with. Migration to it is a lot easier, etc. So I think it has a lot of values. I think there are some things that can be improved, but we do have some tools that can help you in that process. Cool. Let's get started. And when is the right time to migrate? I created this great presentation to cover some of this, and we are probably like here. So over the next couple of years, the price to do migrations will go down, but you will still be paying a higher price to having your PO system. And there could be some points up where the graph will increase if you needed to migrate to a different cloud provider or a S4 project, something like that, that could trigger that it makes sense to manage these things easier. But overall, I think with our tooling, with SAP's tooling, and with better knowledge in the space, it will become cheaper to migrate. But at some point in time, we're probably going to hit a limit where there is too many customers migrating at any one point in time. So preparation, I think this is important. It's not just a technical exercise. This is about how you want to handle your integration in the future. And you need to be curious and figure out what this is going to be like. I started out writing something that you needed a 3 to 5 year on roadmap, what your integration would look like. But looking back at the PI and Business Connector, the thing is that once you start with CPI or Integration Suite, you probably have like a 15 to 20 year lifespan of this integration. So it makes sense to understand where you're going, what is going on with these things. Spend some time figuring out which processes make sense to you. I think the ICM that's also embedded into either the PowerPoint or the one that's embedded into the integration suite makes a lot of sense in that perspective. I would say the parts that are also would be really interesting that you find out a good way to do, given that you got a 15 to 20 years time horizon with these integrations, is that you find a good structure to deal with these things that allow you to scale. You need a transport governance process, good ways for developers to improve, and you need to focus on how can we create testing. I would also say that you should be using Integration Suite for some time so you know how to work with this. So obviously, if you have a small integration landscape, say less than 100, maybe it is not a big problem. But if you have like 500 and more integrations, you probably need to go out. And I guess an interesting question here is also, what is your team size? How do you plan this migration? So please, what's your project? How many people do you have that would be working on such a migration project? So obviously, I think you need to understand platform. You need also to start the migration to the integration suite, because it does not make a lot of sense to first migrate you to Neo and then migrate again to integration suite, because, well, the process of migrating from Neo to integration suite is probably not that high, but you still need to go into all the different systems, update endpoints, etc., and make sure that they are current, unless you have a good process to go with these things and figure out how to handle these things. And then we also got another poll. Just close this one and open the queued one. So yeah, the 5 to 10 people seems to be the most norm, but more than 2 persons is normal. And then the other one, and I think this is probably also one of the interesting aspects about who do you want to run this? Do you want to use this internally, or do you want to use this externally? And I think if I were doing a migration, I would probably get some external partner to work on this, because it is not key aspects to work on these things. Obviously, if you have a good big team that can take this in and say, okay, for the next couple of months we will work on this migration and deal with it in that way, then obviously that's a good option. But if you're a little short and you have a lot of other projects, the external partner may be a way to go on this topic. So 2 seconds more. So okay, I can see that there's a number of consultants here, so yeah, anyway, that makes sense. Cool, thank you. And we got a question here. When would the webinar start? I guess the webinar is already started. So that should be okay, right? Okay, so we are started. We are live. So one thing that you should get started on is to get an understanding of your migration. So in our tooling, we have created an assessment that gives you an overview of your current landscape, what is going on with it, shows what are the ICOs receiver determinations that exist in your landscape. Yeah, and all of these different things. So SAP has this also in their roadmap, and will give you access to create some kind of an assessment. But I do think that it definitely makes sense for you to create both assessments for this to happen. Our support also dual stack objects. I think we go deeper. I have not digged into what SAP's assessment will give you, but I think at least it makes sense to have both because they give you different information on what's going on. The Neo to Cloud Foundry or Integration Suite migration, there is some blogs, and we also have created a blog. But check out, well, we will be sharing some more information in one of the coming weeks about how we can also simplify this. But I think we have a blog on the Figaf side to cover some of these aspects. We do have some free resources that you can get at the Figaf site about how this to deal with these things. I think one of the interesting aspects here is the migration estimator, where you can go through your different scenarios and landscapes and figure out, okay, so what is it? What is going on? How many integrations do we have? How many things can we be migrated? And how much time would we be able to save using any kind of tool and these things? And obviously, this is just a way to get started, because with an amount of knowledge you have at the moment, you cannot really do that. So let's talk about automation. SAP has not released anything public about their tool and what it's able to do. I would encourage you, if you're starting and planning a migration, definitely try out our migration capabilities. And once you see the result of SAP's, I would bet that you find that our tool for now is a better option that can handle your migrations easier. But let's talk about the story here. So yeah, I had a conversation with different customers on how to deal with these things and could we do this? And it's like, yeah, this is not possible. But I had some ideas, but it was some of these big backlog items, and it took too long. So we was participating in the Hack to Build and wanted by creating this automation tool. We got some customers to use the tool to do some of their migrations. And then, in November, right now we just released this process and dealing with this. I can definitely see that there is definitely some items that we want to improve on this topic. There's a question on Seaburger to B2B migration. So we do have a tool that can take a Seaburger message mapping and convert it to B2B mappings. So check out this on the website. That is a simple way to check it out. Okay. Why do you want to automate? It's about creating a consistent experience. It's about speeding up the process, spending the money on things that matters, because there is integration that is just boilerplate that you can easily move. And these are the things that you want to automate. And then it makes it easier to test if it's automated, and then it frees up resources so developers can focus on the things that actually matters. Proxies can be migrated to Integration Suite in Figaf. So obviously we see the proxies as just simple messages, so we don't really have any things that we need to do in that perspective. You obviously need to have some extra steps in how you're dealing with the proxies after they've been migrated, but from our perspective, we just see it as any other messages. Let's see here. There's a number of questions. I answered that one. Do I need to answer questions? Answered? Published. UDFs and function and Java mappings. Let's cover that. Let's see here. I think we'll go into this. And yeah, it's not everything that can be migrated. On a good day or a good project, probably like 70%. But obviously this depends on your landscape, where you're from, what you have used of different sources, how heavily you have relied on specific type of codes, etc. But anyway, 70% or whatever reduction is quite a good thing. The full migration process is obviously longer. It's not just about clicking a button and create some artifacts. It's also about fetching data from the PI system. It's about creating the BPMN model. It's about migrating mappings and other artifacts. Channels, fetching the channels and figure out how to convert them. Then we need to upload them to Integration Suite. We want to test them and move it into production. So this is the part that I wanted to show you. We also talked about the testing capabilities, where we can take some data from PI and testing the migration. I think that is an important part. But and we had a webinar with CPS Consulting in November, where they shared a little about what they were using this tool for. But let's get to the demo, and hopefully that would answer some of your questions along the way. Okay, so here we have the migration overview. This is the place where you would start. So the first thing is obviously you would connect the Figaf application to your PI and CPI system. If you do it in our trial, the easiest is just to run the Figaf system on your laptop. It is pretty easy. Then you go into the agents. You configure agents that point to your CPI or the PI system and your CPI system. Then you add them here. And what you can then do once you've done that is you can generate a report for the current month or last month. And the details we want here is to be able to, don't see. Here. We want to be able to create all of these things. So the tool will automatically try to determine what kind of scenario we have here. What are the modules that exist on one of these adapters. So this will give you some extra bullet points in understanding what's going on. It will show the mappings that you're using. And we also have, if it has XSLTs or Java mapping or ABAP mapping, you will also be able to see them in here. We can see the UDFs that is included in some of these scenarios. And then finally, the EDI messages, and you can see the number of messages that has been processed on this ICO for the last, or in the current month. So you have some details about what is going on with these scenarios. Good. So now we have done our assessment to know what's going on. I don't want to show that one. Do not save. So we have a scenario here. We want to fetch some data from it. So we say record messages. This will allow us to fetch data from our PI webinar. And so we create a test suite that matches this system. We can overwrite the messages that we want, so we know what process these has, and we can select which messages we want. And we have already processed some earlier. I guess in most cases you probably just select the next 10 messages that is being processed on a given scenario like this. We can say save here and process this. And now it will go to the PI system. It will fetch messages from these scenarios. And that means we got 2 inbound and 6 outbound messages. And we can go and create test cases for these scenarios. So that is, Okay, good. So now we have a test case here where we can see that the data. We don't need to run it here on the PI system per se. Then we go back to our migration overview. Here we select the ICO we have, and we select a package that we want to include in this. Created a webinar package here. In webinar. So we'll add it here. We have our iFlow name here. We will check. And what the tool would now do is it will go in, it will find out that we have a sender that's this channel. It will use an XSLT template to convert these items in. And you can modify these channels. So we have positioned these at a Git repository. You can take these and use them. You probably, if you have the idea is that if you have specific scenarios, like you have 5, 10, 100 communication channels that are looking at your FTP or your file communication channel and fetching data from it, then you will create a specific migration or a template that takes this message and convert it into a CPI message in the same way. So the file system is converted into an SFTP, and those things is something that is custom. Then we also get some warnings we need to check up with these things, and we can check everything is okay. We can preview, so we can look at what are the content that is being created, and then we can migrate this iFlow, and now it will create the iFlow fully. And there was just one comment here. We needed to check that HTTP endpoint was updated correctly. So we need to go in here. We need to edit here. We have here one of the message mapping that is converted. And if we look at this message mapping, we will then be able to see that it has a script that's converted. So this is a function library that is converted into a Groovy script. There are some limitations with this, that if you use the context, or PI uses container, CPI uses context, and these two does not match. So if you have used the container, you obviously need to rewrite some of this code. And we also had a challenge. If you had regex, you just needed to go through and replace those things. Probably something we can automate also. There is also message mapping lookups that is being converted here. So it takes the ICO parameters and convert them into these objects. And we press save as version. Oh, what did it say? I didn't see that one. Save as version. All right. And we select deploy. Oh, deployed here. All right. So now we have taken an iFlow, we have converted it, and obviously there will be different things that you need to check with these artifacts to see that they're correct, everything works smoothly, etc. Once that is done, you need to synchronize it back to the Figaf tool. We added option here to do synchronizations. So we can actually take an iFlow directly from CPI helper and synchronize it. Yes, the logic behind all of these iFlow is created automatically at the run at the sign time. So we have created some rules that says if you have a multi-mapping, add these and these processes to the end and part of your tooling. I guess we'll get back to this one. The idea is that we will save a version of the iFlow here so we can compare versions. And I think this is a pretty neat feature. We can compare here, see with our HTML version what is going on, what are the items that we changed. So we can see we did make a change here It had a generated URL, the old one, and now we had a demo webinar. So it is, with this function, it is really easy to see who have made changes to which iFlows and why. Okay, we will go back here to the demo. So we have migrated our iFlow. It works successfully. We can then go here. We have here the item. And what we need to do is we need to migrate our test case. So we created a new test case, and we needed then to migrate this to make sure it is current. And this is the one we just created. We select migrate to CPI iFlow. We select the package that this needs to go into. Here we know, because we have used the tool to automate this migration, we know these messages where they're created. If you do not have those, or if you have used the SAP tool or created themselves, you can also go in and find the places yourself where this should be mapped. But we don't want to spend time on that right now. So we can go here, we can select our testing results. Obviously, we don't have a testing result net. We just need to fetch a license for this object, so we can license this object correctly to handle it. And then we run it again. When we run it, the message will be sent into the iFlow. If we are using steps that is not supported, like SFTP or something else, then the Figaf tool will create a new version of the iFlow and send messages to it. Let's see here why it's not starting. The date. So we can look at the results here. We can see that we got 2 errors here. We can compare them and look at the diffs here, and this is just the date that is different. We can easily go in and ignore this. The same with parameters, if there's some parameters that is different, and then we just compare it again. Then we'll compare all documents, and now everything's green. We have tested successfully, and that makes it simple. For the first instance of before the migration of PO interfaces, so we created the test data before we have migrated the ICOs. You could obviously do it in different order. It depends on the workflow that you have. And once the iFlow is migrated, we can then take the test cases and migrate. I hope that answers it. We have not transported the iFlow between these two things, but created a conversion between them. So now we have migrated our iFlow to our development system. Then the last thing we need is we just need to move it into production. So if we look here at the, I need to clean up here, I think. Here we can see it is not in production, but let's move it into production. So we select the CPI object here. We can select the tracked object. So the tracked object is what allows us to transport. We assign to a ticket, demo webinar. We can select the landscape and we'll just move it directly to production. We also have options to transport to virtual tenants, where we would be reusing the dev tenants for both dev and testing. So here we have the artifact. We will attach all dependent objects. So we have everything that is being transported as part of this. We can look up the tests that we have. So once we are transporting, and this is the idea that this will be a general way of transporting your integrations, so that you always have test cases for all of your integrations. You add them and you make sure that they always run, so whoever is in charge of this can see that the test has run and whether or not it was successful. So we can see that the test is still successful here, which is lucky. We can start the transport. And then we are not using CTS, we are using our own transport capability. And when we are doing the transport here, we can select it. We can see here, we have already overwritten some of these. That is just going to prod. So you can go in on the landscape configuration, define what these items should be. And you can obviously also go in and write them yourself for a specific item. So this gives you a lot more understanding of what is going on. We can send it to approval, as you can define who can approve. And I think that the most important thing is that you cannot approve your own integration. To make the demo a little easier, I can. And now I can approve it, and I can import it to the target environment. And see what is going on here with this this process. And it takes 20 seconds, sorry, for this to process. And then it will log all of the data, so we have the full traceability back and forth between these items. The last thing here, once we are done, we will then, on this migration overview, be able to see the check mark that this is done. So you have one place where you can see what are the items that you're migrated, what's in production. This gives your managers a better overview of what is going on. Okay, let's continue. So yeah, we do have a few items where we can improve this. I always have some time about simplify the onboarding process, because it needs to be easy to get started setting up these things. We want to improve the process, enable you to log different items and select some checkboxes to say, okay, we want to have this type of logging, error handling, etc. There's a question about Java mappings. For Java mappings, we'll just convert, or we will create an empty shell for Groovy mapping, and then you can insert the content in there. We had considered whether or not it would make sense to decompile or find the source code, but I think it becomes a little too complicated and will create a wrong result. So yeah, we do have some different areas we want to focus on, making the migrations easier. To get started, I guess the question you'd be asking, so Daniel, thank you, it looks cool, which model or which version should I be using? And that's a good question. So I think, so we have these 3 editions. We have the trial that allow you to test the functionality. It's limited to 30 days. And then it gives you actually an overview of all the things that you need to do in this perspective. You get the full process. They can create the assessment. Maybe I should have added that as a real checkbox, that you can also use the trial to create the assessment and understand what is going on here. We have the migration edition, which is the part that we have created together with SAP. This allows you to create the assessment, to have this overview of what is going on, and then it allows you to take data from your PI system and run it on the CPI system. So that's the free version. We also have a DevOps suite, and I think that is a lot more interesting if you want to be really good with the migration. So this obviously contains the same kind of testing functionality, but you also have the option to create test cases directly in CPI. You can transport, as you saw we did in this scenario. You can monitor. We have all the iFlows in a Git repository, making it a lot easier to work with. And this starts at 10,000 or 1,000 euros per month for the first 100 iFlows. And then we have the ICO migration, and I'm not sure what to call it, because we have too many migrations in this perspective, but this is about taking one IQ or a classical receiver determination and migrate it into a CPI, our cloud integration iFlow. And then this is €100 per migration that you create with this tool. I hope this becomes a little clearer on what the different editions will do and what you would need to do this. But if you ask me what you need, I will go with these two models because that is where you would save the most time and effort with your migration projects. How to get started? So go to the Figaf site, sign up for the trial, and then you can download this. It's a jar that you download to your PC, run it. You can then connect it to the different agents. So that's the PI and the CPI systems. Then you can set up the migration configuration. You can create the assessment, and then you can try the migration and the DevOps process and see how those things relate and how that can simplify your things. We do have an onboarding package where we help you get started with the tool, setting it up, running these different test cases, create a few test cases together with you so you have some experience about what is it that the tool can do, where is it that it makes sense to use the Figaf tool for these things. How to embed this into your processes. You can learn more and sign up at figaf.com/DevOps tool or PI to CPI migration or PI to CPI. That's also a place. It's the same tool that you sign up for and gives you the same capabilities. Once you're ready to the migration edition, there's also a separate page for you to sign up for that one. If you're a consultant, we obviously, and I could say that there was a few that signed up here. We do have partnership programs that you can go into and see more on these different tools, what can be done. We have some dedicated webinars where we'll go through some of the different scenarios that you can use. And if this is interesting, you want to have some more questions, you can also book a session with me where we can take some of your questions about how to get this into your organization. Now it's time for Q&A. I hope this was interesting, what you're looking for. And yeah, please put the question into the Q&A. I'll try to answer these things. There was there was the question about the Groovy code or Figaf. Yeah, so we create UDFs into Groovy code. There was also a question about what was it? Neo to Cloud Foundry. I think find the page we have on that. And then in the next couple of weeks, we will be sending out some more details about how we think we can automate this. The basic idea is, as you saw here with our transport, that you have a good way to handle this simple. And there was a question about the CBurger migration tool or CBurger migrations. We have this capability here. I'll put it into the chat, where we can take a CBurger message mapping in PI and convert it to a B2B add-on. And I think that it would also be possible to use these scenarios in a CPI scenario. If you're coming directly from CBurger EDI broker, then obviously this is a little more challenging to migrate because we don't have the same source and target data there. But at least you will be able to use the testing capabilities to handle those scenarios. Other questions that I forgot? There was some questions here. Do you have it, Praveen? Do you have anything specifically for the proxies or any challenges there? So obviously there is something with proxies that you need to migrate them in a separate way, and it could be difficult for you to update them to handle these things. But from a migration perspective, I think it's pretty easy. You just convert them and then you have access to it in CPI. But the maintenance in the other proxies can obviously be a little more complicated. So we have these XSLTs templates that allows you to take, there's a question about the Advanco packages for SFDC Salesforce, as I recall it. You can take these XSLT, create these conversions of it, and that is pretty simple. It takes you like 10 minutes. You first create a version of the iFlow where you have connected this adapter correctly. Then you go in and take this piece of code, convert it into the XSLT, and there you can set up these scenarios for it. But obviously, if the message formats it's different, or there are some other items challenges with it, you need to find the right spot to handle that kind of a conversion between specific adapters. And the same, if you change from one adapter to another, you need to create these changes yourself. I hope that answers the question. Otherwise, more questions? And live stream here. Do you have any other questions? Anything I did not cover that you could find interesting? And yeah, we are hosting the session again in a couple of hours. If you want to learn more, and if you have some colleagues that want to also ask some questions. But I think, yeah, the main part is that we generate this iFlow on the fly with the different items in. So it is possible to extend it in our code. So if you have some service requests, we may be able to extend it, and I think that is one of the things that we will need to do to simplify the migration, because as you saw, the iFlow does not have, it's not enterprise grade. It does not support exactly once or anything like that. Yeah. Integration advisor, is that the integration content advisor? We do not support that. I'm not sure how well it's supported. As I understand it, you just use the tool on your dev instance, convert the XSLTs, and then you can put them into iFlows and transport. And if you do that, then it works smoothly. I'm not sure if there is a need to transport those kind of content, because it is anyway, as I understand it, in the iFlow. Is that correct, or am I is that, yeah? But yeah, we don't have support for that. We do have support for API management, where we can do transport just as you saw we do here, export all of your content into a Git repository, etc. Other questions? Cool. I hope there's one more thing I wanted to share. I hope it was useful. You saw some of the aspects where the tool could be used in your organization. Let me see. We'll just hang out a few more minutes. So are any of you guys a part of the SAP beta program? I guess that's also a good question. And anything I should go deeper into? In the chat. Oops.